Hi, this is Birch Trees number 2. A slightly different method on this one. I'm using exactly the same colours, so yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber, sap green, and then a grey. I have this time mixed the grey from the ultramarine blue and the burnt umber only, so that it's a little bit darker. You also want your paint thicker this time, so it's not massively thick, but it's thicker than you would use it for a wash. It wants to have a little bit of substance, and you will want a trusty bit of credit card, or you can use the side of a knife or a palette knife, whatever you're more comfortable with. Personally, for small things like this, I just find it easier to go with a bit of a credit card. Just make sure it's not your husband's and it's not still valid and in use, and that you cut all the information off it. So I haven't put a sketch down this time, and I'm not going to. All I'm going to do is just wet the paper from top to bottom where I want my tree to go, and straight away I'm going in with my thicker mix. And you can see that this is thicker than it was when we did the birch trees on the first one. I'm not too bothered about the bottoms, but we'll work on that as we go. So I've got that in. I am going to give that a few seconds to soak into the paper and just take the top off. Now, I'm not washing my brush. I'm touching it out to get rid of any excess liquid. I'm going to pick up some of my sap green. So all these colours are the same as in the first video, but they're a little bit thicker. And I'm keeping the sap green round the bottom, which is what usually happens really. And then straight away I'm picking up some of the blue. Just going to drop this in more towards the centre than anywhere else, all the way down. And just remember that trees tend to be a little bit darker at the bottom. They don't get exposed to as much light. Again, I'm wiping my brush off, picking up the burnt sienna, which is the nice warm reddish brown. I'm going to drop this in again more towards the centre, and this time we're going to have the light more on the left hand side, but you can do any way you like. And then I'm picking up some of my very dark, so this is the one mixed from Ultramarine Blue and Burnt Umber, and I'm going to drop this in again all over the place, but more towards the right hand side. Now I'm going to leave that whole mixture for just a minute, just to let it soak in. Now, if you're really quick, you can actually do this and have a number of trees plotted with your colours before you start. But we're taking it a step at a time. So what I'm going to do now with my trusty debit card, and you will see that I've got a squared off corner and I have got a rounded corner, or you can use the longer side. It really is up to you, but you want your paint to have settled into the paper. And the reason for this is we're going to move it around using the card, but you want to have sufficient pigment that has already adhered to the paper for it to actually leave a trace of it behind. Now I'm going to create this so that the left hand side is the lighter side of the tree. And I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to pull just a little bit, just lightly pull some of that paint. And then I'm going to go from the left hand side and just pull across. Left, pull. And every time I stop, it leaves a little pool of the colour behind. So I'm going to pull it across. This is also a technique that you can use for things like bamboo. So I'm just going to give that a second. I do want a little bit more dark in there. I'm just going to add slightly more paint. put that back in here. Now, I didn't put a massive amount of pressure on this with the card, but you can do. I'm just going to add some more darks back in. Just give it a second or two longer, and then I'm going to come back in. And I'm moving the paint across, and behind it, it's leaving these lovely traces. Now, you can straighten your edge up if you need to. But don't worry too much. I want to get a better mix here, so I'm going to just pull some of this colour back the other way, just for a sec, and then bring it back across. And the more pressure you put on the card, the more paint you will move across. So straight away before that dries, I'm going to pick up some of the dark on my 00 brush. I'm going to use some of these dark areas here to pull my branch out of. And let's create another dark area there. Pull my branch straight out of that. Be fine. Down here, you often get it with birch, where you have these little, almost like little twiglets that come out from lower down. So I'm just using the colour that we've already got on there, just to pull it out. It's quite a nice effect. Right, so we'll do another one. So again, I'm not going to draw it in. This time, I'm just going to go in with my yellow ochre. Now, one reason for doing this is, on this one, we wet the whole thing first, then we put the yellow ochre on, and then we added the other colours in. So you end up with quite a wet area to work. This one, I'm just going to go in with my yellow ochre. It is slightly thicker or slightly richer than you would maybe have it for a wash. A bit more creamy. And then I'm not cleaning the brush. I'm going straight in, picking up some of the Sap Green. I'm going to concentrate that towards the bottom here. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off. I need to wipe it off because each time I pick up colour, I'm potentially picking up liquid at the same time. So now I've gone into my Ultramarine Blue, and I'm going to drop that through the middle. I'm putting a lot more of it towards the bottom than higher up, because the bottom will be darker. Going in with my burnt sienna. Again, I'm just going to drop this in. I'm not too worried about where it goes. Again, this time I'm working on the basis that the left-hand side will have more light showing through than the right. I've washed my brush because I'm going to pick up a tiny little bit, just a tiny bit of purple. Make sure if you go anywhere near the water, you clean your brush off and dry it. Don't go in with a brush that you've just dipped in the water, because if you do, the chances are what you're going to do is transport colour in. So now I'm going straight into my really dark colour. Again, I don't want to cover everything up. I just want to get enough darks in there. You can see how dark this is. It's a lovely rich colour. And before this gets any drier, picking up my card, I'm going to start pulling it from left across to the right. And it's got a slight tilt to it. Not so much pressure at the bottom. And before that dries, going to pick up some of my very dark colour. And I've got a lovely dark area here, and I'm going to take that and pull myself out a few little branches. I've got another dark area here, so I'm going to take some of that. Strengthen that up, otherwise that one's going to break the minute the wind blows. Yeah, why not here? Got another dark area. So although I'm using the darkest paint, I'm also looking at what's on the tree or the dark areas that have been left behind. And here we go. Let's take off this bit here, which is in the centre. So I'm just picking up some of the dark. So yeah, let's go here. Put some more dark in there. And this will create what we call a foreshortened branch. So I'm bringing it up. And then bits of it will come back on it. So nice and thick. So here, it's coming from down here, it's coming up. There we go. Do we want to put any foliage on? Well, why not? Why not? So I'm going back to my original brush and into the sap green. You can use a little bit of the yellow ochre here, but I'm just going into the sap green, fairly dry. Side of the brush, I'm just pulling it up. So as we're in springtime now, we've got a lot of this sort of very small foliage, not quite in leaf yet, all the buds are through. Just using the brush as the side, pulling it through. You can add more colour to it if you want, don't need too much. I think the knack is to keep the brush following the directions that you've got your branches. And if I wanted a little bit darker, I've just picked up some of the Ultramarine Blue, just a few little bits here and there. Create a few bits of shadows in it where the light plays. Right, for the bottoms this time, I'm just going to soften around the bottom of the tree. Pull some of my dirty colours up into the bottom, pull it out. Same here, let some of those colours bleed down. So unless your trees are growing in a perfectly manicured, perfectly controlled environment, they're going to have bits of dirt, leaves, grass, all sorts around them. And sometimes it does look just that little bit better to just try and emulate nature. She doesn't have any hang-ups. She just is. All I've done now is taken my brush into my paint, thick. I've broken it open, I've forced it open. Just pulling a few little bits and pieces up. Even though I've got all these colours on here, you can still see traces of everything. I'm picking up some of the brown, same process, forcing the brush open. Backing in on it. Some of the really dark now, colours that people would never dream of putting in. Even here, keep the brush, forcing it open. There you go. Some nice little tufts of grass all around it. If you want, you can add in a little bit of dry brush smoke once it's dried. Here we go, just touching it, side of the brush, pulling it in. If you want to do dry brush work, you really need to let this dry first and then go back in. But I'm just showing you how we'd go about it. So everything in this is pretty much using the same colours. And it's quite comfortable. Looks nice. You can add this into your pictures. It's not a problem. Okay, hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you. Bye bye.